Do you ever get writer's block and feel like you can't even start your next track? You have no idea what to write about, you don't know where to begin. My name's Tim Boulevard. I'm a professional record producer, songwriter and musician. And in today's video, I want to talk to you about writer's block and how to overcome it and some of the ways that you can pull yourself out of that sort of void, that emptiness that's going on in your head, and start giving yourself inspiration and ideas and some of the methods that you can try to bring out the very best music that's within you. So today I think you're going to be a little blown away by the production value. I've gone full on Jurassic Park here, spared no expense, as they say. So this is a whiteboard and this is a pen. Yeah, this cost me about £4. This is your piece of paper, and a lot of ideas are going to start with a piece of paper, because once you write something down, what you're actually doing is emptying confusion from your head. Okay, so I suppose the first question is, what should you write songs about? And the answer is literally anything. And you might think, well, why would you write about anything? Like, why would you write about a teacup? Right? I mean, you're not going to write a very interesting song about a teacup, so you can't write about anything. But I beg to differ. Right. So let's say you're going to write about a teacup. Excuse my writing. It's been about 40 years since I wrote on a whiteboard. Why would you write a song about a teacup? Well, let's just say perhaps that teacup was a gift from someone who's no longer with you. And every time you look at that teacup, it makes you feel emotional. It makes you remember everything to do with that person. And every time you drink from that teacup, you remember conversations you had with them and feelings you had for them. I'm a very empathic person, as you can probably tell. I don't actually have a teacup, but I'm allowing my brain to get into this, this feeling of what it would be like to have a sentimental item that reminds you of somebody that you love. And I allow my emotions to get into that place. I could literally well up and cry. I know it sounds ridiculous, right? But I really allow my imagination to go there. And what that does is it evokes real emotions that somebody else, the listener in this case, can relate to. So let's say this teacup reminds you of, I'm going to go for gold here. Let's say this teacup reminds you of your gran. Now, my gran did pass away years ago, so I've got some personal experiences that I can draw on. Okay, so I'm going to take that to say it's Gran's teacup. Okay, that she left for me in her will. Okay, now none of this happened, but let's say that she left that for me in her will. Okay, and let's say that it was also the last thing you did with your gran, or in my case, my gran. Let's say the last thing that I did with my gran was I sat down with her and I had, oh, this is such a story, right? I had a cup of tea with my gran from that teacup. Okay, so now we've got a conversation that I had with my gran, and it was the last conversation. Okay, the last conversation I had with my gran. I hope you can see all this. I actually can't see what I'm filming. I kind of do these videos a bit blind, you know. Okay, so let's say it was the last conversation I had with my gran before she passed away. Okay, right. And now what you can do from that is start sort of imagining a conversation that you had. Maybe you talked about Maybe that conversation you had with her was a meaningless conversation. Maybe you were just talking about what's on telly or something. Maybe it meant nothing. And you didn't realize how relevant that conversation was, the importance of that conversation, that it was the last conversation you'd ever have with her. Or let's say that that conversation you had with her, you really opened up with her. Maybe it was the first time you opened up with her. Maybe you spilled your heart to her about where you were in life, how you weren't accomplishing everything you wanted. Maybe you'd said to her something like that you wanted to be an inspiration. Okay, right. So let's say that you, within this conversation, let's say that you said that you wanted to be as much an inspiration to your grandchildren as she'd been to you. So you see where I'm going with this. Like, we started out with a teacup. It means nothing. It's an inanimate object. But you start drawing up this story, and now what seems like just a teacup becomes a deep and meaningful thing. And you will start drawing ideas out from yourself to do with this, or to do with any subject, any object, that will mean that you can write something that you never thought of writing before. Like, I promise you, I had no idea what I was going to do on this video other than I wanted to talk about writer's block. So there is one method, okay? So that method, we could call it the teapot method, right? The teacup method. Let me just erase this stuff. Okay, right, let's call it method 1, teacup. Okay, because now you know what that means. So at this point in the video, I'd like to ask you to do me a little favor. Go and hit the like button for me, and hit the subscribe button. It really helps out new channels such as this one. And why not leave me a comment as well. Let me know what kind of blockages you guys experience when it comes to writing and producing new tracks, and maybe share some of the ways that you like to overcome those blockages. You know, maybe we can all help each other out a little bit. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, method number 2. This is a cool little sort of tool for you to use, maybe when you're in the middle of writing lyrics, or maybe you've got your subject matter, maybe it is a teacup, maybe it's something to do with driving. Let's say you want to do a song to do with driving. Okay, so what you do here is you make columns. I like columns. I like writing things in columns. So you write in column number 1, you're going to write nouns, okay, which are objects, people, things, you know, that kind of thing. And here we're going to write verbs, which is like actions and that kind of thing, like descriptive words. And let's say that we're writing about driving, okay? Okay, so in your nouns column, you're going to start writing everything and anything you can think of to do with driving. Okay, you're going to start with driving. You can say wheel. You can write air that passes over you or through the window. Window, that's a good one. You write a big list of them, okay? I don't know how good or bad this example of driving might be. This is just literally off the cuff, okay? So now in your verbs, you're going to start writing any verbs you can think of, and they don't have to relate to that. In fact, it's sometimes a good idea to literally cover this column up, okay? Now just start writing anything, right? Any sort of verbs. Shining, glistening, don't know why this is coming to my head. Moaning. Fiery. So write as many down as you can. Don't just stop when you've done like 10 or something. Just keep going. The more words you write down in each column, the more sort of depthy you're gonna get. Okay, so you don't want to go necessarily for obvious stuff. Sometimes obvious stuff is great, but you might want to come up with something a little more unusual. Okay, once you've done that, you can take a pencil or your pen and literally, pretty much with your eyes closed, just start doing this, okay? Right. And you can do that. Right. And now what you do is start following the lines and seeing what you get. Driving, moaning, glistening wheel, deafening mirror. So what this will do, when you've got a much bigger list than what I've done here, it'll start giving you sort of new ways to describe things. And you can look at this and kind of go, well, what does that mean? Why have you got a deafening mirror? It kind of makes no sense, right? What if, what if somebody is sitting with you in the back seat screaming at you? You've probably seen, you know, those videos from Uber drivers. Other taxi services are available, but when you see those videos uploaded to YouTube of Uber drivers and they've got like a very unhappy client in the back and they're screaming at them. Let's say your song could be about you driving and you're a taxi driver and the person in the back seat is yelling and screaming at you, and bit by bit you start realizing that that person was just involved in a incident at home and a fight broke out and they are raging at you, and it comes out within their rage that they might have just killed someone. Okay, so where did that come from? That came from this, the most weird sort of like, why deafening mirror? It's because you're seeing them in your mirror, and every time you look at them, you're getting this feeling, right, of being deafened by them. Okay, I think you kind of get the point. This is a way of coming up with ideas. And this, to be honest, wasn't a great example. Driving, it's like quite a difficult sort of, well, maybe not difficult, but I haven't really gone into depth. I've only written, what, 7 things here on each side. So do this, but write out like 20 things. What you don't really want to do is go for the easy ones. You want to kind of go for something that you weren't going to naturally think of. Okay, so that one, let's call, well, see how all of this is like spaghetti. I'm going to call this one word spaghetti, all right? So, method number 3 for how to get out of writer's block. Number 1 part of this is stop worrying about it. Stop worrying about it so much. Every song doesn't need to be your greatest hit. In fact, what's a really good idea is to set yourself a target to write 5 songs in one day. Do you know Jarvis Cocker, the singer from Pulp? He used to come home from the pub and write 20 songs in one night. He was probably drunk as a skunk while he did it. But the point is, you don't have to write your greatest hit every time you write a song. Write 5 songs a day and give yourself the task of making sure that each one of them is absolute trash. Just write whatever the heck comes out of your head, okay? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter. Just write anything. Just get that out, okay? Because the more rubbish you get out of your head, the more you're clearing the way and learning in the process of how to write really great material. If you listen to the interviews with Ed Sheeran, he talks about how he used to write absolute rubbish, you know, and the more you get rid of that rubbish, the more you are clearing the path for good stuff, you know. You can't have an immaculate house until you've cleaned up. So get rid of the rubbish, tidy stuff away, chuck stuff out, and then you'll have a tidy house. Okay, so that was kind of like the first part of what I'm going to say now. So in fact, let's make that a thing all by itself. Okay, write a bunch of rubbish songs. Okay, write a bunch of rubbish. Just allow yourself to do that. Take the pressure off. Okay. Number 4. Now, let's say you are starting from scratch. You've got no melody, no lyrics, nothing. This one is so underrated and not really talked about, in my opinion. This is what I call going into the silence. I write some of my best stuff at 3 in the morning when I'm in bed and I've got my earplugs in. I sleep with earplugs because I toured a lot and I just got used to it. I used to work with all sorts of bass players that would have snoring problems. No one I work with now. It was years ago. So, but anyway, stick your earplugs in, put your headphones on, whatever you need to do to be in a silent environment. And don't try. Let music come to you. In fact, when you're writing, let's say you've already got a backing track that you're working on, maybe you're top line writing. This is something I really find valuable, is I take a recording of that with me somewhere and listen to it. Maybe I'm out, I don't have a dog anymore, but I used to, and I would take that dog for a walk in the park and stick my headphones on, listen to that music, and then switch the music off. And then your brain will start doing things. It's almost like you're kind of giving a free rein to your imagination. So use the silence to allow anything to come into you. Don't be restricted by listening to the track. And you know, when you're listening to a track, you definitely have a number of bars that you have to fall into, and that's the pitch that the track is in. That's the key that you've got to stick to. So get rid of all of that, and then your imagination will start coming up with things in the silence, rather than when you are flooding your brain and your senses with what you're listening to. Okay, so let's call this go into the silence. Okay. Number 5. Reference tracks. Reference tracks are where you have a song or an artist or a style in mind that you want your track to be like. Don't ever be afraid of using reference tracks. When you use a reference track, a lot of people are afraid that, oh, you know, you're going to be compared to that artist. People are going to listen to you and say, oh, you've ripped that track off, you've copied this, you've copied that. I promise you, unless you are literally stealing a melody and stealing lyrics, your track will never sound the same as the reference track, especially if, like most producers, you use multiple reference tracks. So, you know, various producers that I've worked with in the past, they'll listen to a track from a different era even and say, I really like the percussion part off that track. Can we make something similar to that? And I'll sit with them and I'll work on it and record something and write something that's similar. So unless you happen to know a particular Doobie Brothers track, you know, from 1978, you're not going to listen to this new track in, you know, 2025 and go, oh yeah, that's exactly like that from that, because it wouldn't be exactly the same. And then once it's in the context of the new track, you're really not going to know where it came from or where the inspiration came from. And let's face it, all tracks are inspired by something else. You're not going to sit down nowadays and write a brand new track in a new style using new chords and new notes and new patterns that nobody's ever heard. It doesn't work like that. Plus, people these days, and I think probably throughout all history, have always needed like a point of reference so that a new track feels familiar to them in some way. If it's too new and too out there, people can't relate to it. It needs to sound like something that they're used to hearing. So for instance, where you've got artists like Teddy Swims, for instance, you listen to the style of his production. You listen to how his first single and his second single, the style of production is very similar to each other. But also, if you listen to the records of Amy Winehouse, you would hear how the production is a similar sort of style. It's not the same, it's similar. It's kind of got that old school vibe to it where it's been recorded live and you can hear that there's real musicians playing real instruments. And you know, it's kind of got that vibe to it. So it might be inspired by the Mark Ronson production, but it's not the same. So yeah, when you're using reference tracks, don't be afraid that if you do that, that someone's going to say, oh, you sound exactly like this other record. I promise you, it's not going to sound the same unless you are blatantly copying it and trying to remake the same record. Okay, so yeah, let's call that reference tracks. And while I'm writing this down, it comes to me that you can actually combine reference tracks with step 4, going into the silence. And the way to do that is you listen to a bunch of tracks that are similar to what you want to write, and then you go into the silence and start ad-libbing in your head. And as you start ad-libbing and letting your imagination go wild, the kind of music that you're going to start writing in your head, the melodies, the production, all of that stuff is likely to be in the vein of the reference tracks that you've been listening to. Okay, number 6. This kind of also goes in line with the reference tracks thing, and that is to write your track first. Don't come up with a melody, don't come up with lyrics, just start recording a track that is in the same sort of vibe as what you want to make. Okay, so start with your track. And there's several ways to do that. Oh God, I can't even spell track now. Right, so there's several ways to do that. You could start with a drum pattern. And don't be afraid to use samples and loops and things from other artists. You can start with that and then replace it later. Again, you know, even if you used like a sample of somebody else's track that where you just were able to pick out the drums, for instance, and you use that as your starting point for a track, but then later replace it, and yeah, you could record something very, very, very similar to it. But now the sounds are different. No one's going to say, oh, well, you know, that was like taken from the Duffy record, for instance, Mercy. It's like, well, now you've used a totally different drum sound. Well, I'm pretty sure that that groove has been recorded by a million artists, you know. It was used by The Offspring in a track called Come Out and Play, I think it was called. And it's the one that goes, you gotta keep them separated. Okay, so it's the same groove. So you could start with that and then change the sounds later. You'll add to it, you'll change it, it'll be completely different. So use reference tracks. Use samples to start your track if you want to. Another way to do it is to start with just chords. And again, don't think that just because you've recorded those chords within the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you have to stick with those chords. I'll tell you a quick story as well. For those of you who know my music, I actually only started as a solo artist last year. I've been a ghost producer since 2000, I think, or 2001. Where I've been working for all sorts of major artists and producers in London and all over the country, where I go in and I would help them with their tracks, maybe record new parts, bounce ideas with them, you know, that kind of thing. So getting back to the story, I did a track called Phobia, and the first thing that I recorded with that track was actually the chorus, and I recorded a temporary vocal, put it all together, and then when it came to the verses, I was just going round and round in circles, and I was hating everything I did. I was hating it all, to the point where I spent like 2 or 3 days working on a verse, and on day 3 I scrapped the whole song. Hated it. And then I had a conversation with my wife, and she told me I love that track. I love the chorus. It's so good. And she started reminding me of some of these things. And just in this one conversation I had with her, she reminded me that I don't need to stick to the chords that I've already written. I could experiment. There's no rules. In fact, there's only 2 rules, and this is a lesson I learned from a very good friend of mine. Rule number 1, always stick to the rules. Rule number 2, there are no rules. Okay? And what she reminded me was I can experiment. And what I ended up doing was thinking back to, and I used another reference track, which is way completely different to anything else I've already mentioned. I started listening to Crazy by Seal. And if you've really listened to that track, you'll notice that the bass part on that track always stays on one note. It never changes. The chords around it change, but the bass stays on one note. It's called a pedal note if you want to get into the musicality and musical technical terms and everything. It's called a pedal note. And when that bass note stays on one note and you do other things with the chords, it gives a whole different flavor to the chords above it. And I ended up doing that with my verse, and I changed all the chords for my verse, and then I was able to write a whole new melody and whole new lyrics, and it really opened up the track to possibilities. Rather than me being stuck in the circle that I was in, I just totally changed everything. So there's another great way to overcome writer's block, is change everything. Okay. And again, don't be precious of it. If it ends up being a great track, great. And if it ends up being a track that's just a bit meh, then great. At least you've got it out of your system, and now you can work on a new track. Okay, so this one, step 6, is record the track first. Record the track first and make it into a backing track. Now, if you get to the end of recording that track and you are still stuck for melody and lyrics, then you can do a collaboration with it. Get someone else in. They could be a friend of yours. They could be just a second set of ears. And you can basically hire a top-line writer. Just always be fair. Always be fair with, if you're going to start doing royalty splits and all the rest of it, be fair. Don't take advantage of people. Let's say that and you might disagree with this, but this is one way of looking at it, okay? Let's say that you start out with the track. Now the track, the chords, the production is done, and you then bring in a top-line writer. You have to give yourself credit that the track, the chords, and all that production and all that time that you've put into it is going to highly influence the melody and possibly the subject matter of the song, but it's definitely going to highly impact the melody. So you would get 50% of your royalties for the production, and then I would say that you could then go 25% to, if you're in the session writing melody and lyrics, give yourself 25% for being in the session for writing melody, lyrics, and another 25% goes to your top line writer. Okay, so there's a really good website called MasterWriter. Okay, now MasterWriter has got a whole bunch of tools on there, including a thesaurus, a dictionary. It's got tools to do with synonyms. It's got phrases and all sorts of stuff on there which will give you inspiration. and it's got a rhyming dictionary. So you can type in a word, you can say how many syllables you want your new word to have, and you want it to rhyme perfectly or close match, or yeah. So it's an amazing tool. Go and have a look at it. It's called Masterwriter. So let's put that one here. No, this video is not sponsored by Masterwriter, but I do genuinely use it. I think it's about £6 a month or something, subscription fee. So what is that? One coffee on the high street? I don't know. I don't drink coffee. Okay, and the last one is to actually have a book, have a thesaurus, have a dictionary, but I mean, there's Google, right? Google has got a thesaurus and it's got a dictionary, of course. So you could use that. I really like having a book. I like being able to flick through and seeing words and seeing all the options right in front of me. So you can buy yourself a thesaurus. So let's see if I can spell this one. Something like that. Okay, so here you go. Here's a nice list of 8 things that you can do to try and get yourself out of writer's block, to try and give yourself some inspiration. The main thing to consider when writing a song, and what's really important, I think, is a story. You don't want to have just a song that's talking about people jumping up and down in a club. You know the kind of song I'm talking about. You want a story, because a story is what people connect to. Emotion is what people connect to. Authenticity is what people connect to. So if you write from a place that's authentic and something that you can write from experience, fantastic. You know, even when we were talking about the teacup, that never happened. But I have lost people in my life, and I can draw on the emotions that come with that, and you can let your emotion go wild. So anyway, I hope this has helped. Please do leave me a comment, leave me some ideas of what you'd like to see more videos on. If I can help you at all with writing melody, writing chords, production ideas, production techniques, please leave me a like and hit the subscribe button so that you can see all my upcoming videos. If you'd like to work with me personally, I do offer a mentorship service where we can work on you as a producer, as a musician. I can work with you on one of your tracks. We can work together in many different ways. So I'll leave an email address for you in the description. You can reach out to me, just tell me how you'd like to work with me and we can take it from there. But with that being said, thank you so much for your time. I hope you found today enjoyable and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, bye-bye.